Welcome to this online meetup. My name is Max, and I do education and community for Okta Workflows. Now, today's topic is how to create user onboarding and automation for user onboarding. And this is going to be as I'm building the flow, we're going to cover the fundamentals, like really from the beginning. And so before we get started, this event is being recorded, and then we'll have a recording up tomorrow on YouTube. If you have questions, please put them in chat or in the Q&A section. Also in that right there, my email. If you have questions, after and you want to contact me directly, please. You can always happy to answer questions. Also, we have an event coming up, and then if you have plans to be at Octane in September in Las Vegas, we have a community meetup coming, that we are planning there on September 25th. I believe it's a Thursday, and I'm going to share a link in the chat. But also tomorrow you'll get an email with a link to the recording, and I'll include the link there as well. But this is the meetup. It has all the information, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to share a message in chat for everyone, so you can actually click on it. Okay, let me see if there are any. I don't see any questions. Okay, then let's get started. Now, I have actually one more slide that I want to show you. That's what we're going to build. And this is how it looks. So it's a new onboarding automation where when a new user is added to Okta, we're going to do several things. We're going to send an email to their manager saying, hey, there is a new user in Okta. And then we will also send a message to Slack. So for instance, to new employees channel, just welcoming this new user. Also, as an extra step, we will also share a folder with the user. So depending on which department they are, we will share either the engineering folder with them or the sales folder, right? So that's going to be the onboarding flow that I'm going to build today. Okay, so I can minimize this, and so let's go here. Now, let me just quickly check. I don't see any questions. Okay. All right. Now, if you're first time starting with Workflows, so you're probably going to be on this page, and this is the homepage for Workflows, and it has some templates right here that you can try. And if you scroll more down, there are also some videos. Also, there are a lot of resources on the right-hand side here in the upper corner. There are videos, how-to guides, documentation, office hours. So I host office hours every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So yeah, a lot of resources to help you. Now, as I mentioned, there's some templates here, but if you can also see templates here, and you can see the various templates here. Now, templates, these are pre-built flows that you can add, you can start using. It's a great way to learn, or also it could be a great way as a starting point. You can also, make changes, break it, then delete it, and just re-edit it again. So, and you can search for a template. So again, that's right here. But I'm going to go back to flows. Now, if you're going to be starting, you're going to have only a default folder here. As you can see, I have a lot of different folders, so you can organize flows into folders. And again, once you have, more than just a few flows, I definitely encourage you to create folders. But I have a folder for online meetups, and then it's divided, I have a year, and then I have also a month. So we are right in the 25 and August 25, and you can make this bigger, smaller. Now, to create a new flow, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this blue new flow button, and right away it creates a flow. Usually you want to give it a name right away, so let's give this a name. So notify new user, right? And we can use the same for the description, right? And I'm going to click save, right? And right away, I've got a new flow. Now, when you're creating a new flow or a new automation, so the first thing you want to consider is like, how do you trigger a flow, right? So there are two main ways you can trigger a flow. First one, if an event happens in Okta, but could also be another system. Okay, so again, first one is like an event happens in Okta, and you want to run this, automation. The second one is schedule. So you can run the flow on schedule, so maybe every hour, every day, every week, and so on, right? The third way also, you can also trigger a flow via an API endpoint, right? So you can have another system call an API, which will in turn call a flow, right? But in this example, we'll be using an event. And so right here, when this happens, I'm going to click Add Event. And so there's a schedule option, there is the API endpoint, but I'm going to be using the helper. Sorry, I'm going to be using an event. So right here, I'm going to select Okta. Now, these are connectors that Okta has, and there are over 60, actually 80 plus connectors available in workflows today. And so you can use events in various in these systems to trigger a flow. Now I'm going to use Okta, and then it shows me a list of events which I can use to trigger a flow. So you can see a list of events, and you can also search. So maybe, let's see, user. So right here, user created. Okay, so that's the event that I'm going to use. Okay. So let me just quickly show this again. I'm going to delete this. So again, want to trigger this flow when an event happens in Okta. So I click at event, and I see these are the connectors which provide events on which I can trigger a flow. So I'm using Okta, and then I see a list of events. And again, I'm going to use create. Oh, let me user, and right here, user created. So now this is called the card in workflows, and this is an event card. Now every event is going to be a little bit different, but now these are the fields or the data the event makes available. So now I can use this information in my flow. So there is date and time, there is an ID. For example, admin, this is the person who created the user. And then right here, Okta user, this is the user that was just created, okay? Now, one thing is before you can use an event card like this that's connected to a connector, you need to create a connection. Now, I have an existing connection that I'm using Okta, but if you were to use this for the first time, you would be prompted to create a connection, right? So I've got a connection here. And I'm going to show you an example of how it would look when you don't have a connection available. But anytime you want to use a connector in workflows, then you need to have at least one connection. And you can create multiple connections. So you can have a connection to the production environment, you can have a connection to the development environment, and so on. All right. Let me see. All right. Actually, let me see here. One question. Let me see. There's one question. Which card we need to select if you want to take application access event? Is that is it part of OIG? Are you referring to? But let me quickly show you. So you would let me delete this. So you would look at all apps. Now the difference is the connected apps. So these are all the connectors for which I have a connection. And then this is just a list of all of them. And so, for example, you would look here, there's Okta devices, and Okta ITP. But if you send me more information, I can look into which connector you would be using. I also, I can show you here, what I usually do is I go to docs. I mean, I also recommend you bookmark this because I use this all the time. So you go to connectors, and you can see a list of connectors. And for example, if I go to, let's say Okta, so every connector is going to have a similar format. There are going to be two sections, the event cards. Again, these are the events on which you can trigger a flow, and then the action cards. I'm going to talk about action cards in just a second. Also right here, Okta, this is the connector. There's an authorization section. And then there's going to be the events. So if I go to events, so you can see these are all the events that you can use to trigger a flow. All right. And then also, these are all the actions, but we're going to talk about the action in just a second. Let me see. There is one question, and I'm actually going to answer it live. There's a question: is it possible to trigger the event from a programming language for workflow? So yes, so you could have another system. So you can set up a webhook, and then when an event happens in another system, there you can write any code you want. You can trigger an API endpoint, which in turn will trigger a flow in workflows. So yes, so you could again write code in another system, an event happens, and then you trigger a flow via an API point. So hopefully that answers your question. All right. So let's go back here. Okay, so let me go back to Okta. And go to, actually, let me search user created. All right. Now, so what I usually do at this point is that, I can continue building the flow, but what I like to do is actually, I can test this. I just want to make sure, hey, can I trigger this flow when the user is created in Okta, right? I don't need to have any other steps in the flow. I just want to see if I can trigger the flow. So for that, I'm going to turn the flow on. I'm also going to enable this option. And you can also enable this option when you name a flow. But what this is going to do is going to save data between different flow runs. And then I can return and see what data, the data used for each run. So this is very useful for debugging and testing the flow, right? So the flow is on, I'm saving the data. And now let's see, let's create a user and see if I can trigger this flow. Now, when the flow runs, I would switch to execution history and it will show me a run. Let me go to, let me sign in into the admin console. And let me sign in and sign me out. All right. So now to save time, actually, I'm going to import a user from a CSV file. So I'm going to, let me actually show you how it looks first. Let me go here. I've got two files that I'm going to be using. And so there's a user, Anna, and her email, and she is in the engineering department. This is one file. And then another one I'm going to be using is Eric, and he's in the sales department. All right. So I exported those files as CSV already. So let me go import, and so first I'm going to do Anna, and I'm going to upload, and next there's some options here, but I don't need to check anything. I'm just going to click import users. All right, one user imported. I'm going to now go to my flow. And sometimes what, first, it could take a few minutes for the flow to register. So if you activate a user but don't see an execution, you sometimes have to delete the user and rerun it again. But I think now, I think like a minute or two passed since I activated the flow, so you can see actually that the run is right here. And we can see here that it successfully ran, and this is all the information. So for example, admin, and I can look at the data. Admin is myself, and I can expand the JSON, and I can see that's the admin, that's the person who created the user. And then I can look at the Okta user itself, and I can see that Anna, we created the user Anna, and this is their information. Okay. So now this means that I can trigger a flow, and now I can continue building it. So before, let me actually delete Anna, because I'll be creating Anna again. So, and let's delete. Okay. All right. So let's continue building. Now, if I go back to execution history, I'm going to see here, look at the user information, and I see that this is the information that the event makes available. Now, this is fine, but actually I need more. I need to get the user's title and also their department. So now, to get more information, I need to use the Okta connector and read information and just get more and more information about this user. So I'm going to use an app action. And again, you can see these are all the connectors. This is the full list here. This is the 80 plus connectors that Workflows has. And I'm going to use Okta connector. And you can see these are all the actions that the connector provides. Now, behind the scenes, these are API calls. And I'm going to read user. So retrieve Okta user information. And now every action is going to be a little bit different, but this one is telling me, so it has an input of user ID, and then it has these outputs, and you can see there's a lot of different outputs. Now the default values, actually, I don't need them, so I'm going to uncheck them. Right? But what I do need is I want to say the username. I want to do first name, last name. I'm going to do title, and I'm going to do department. Right? I'm going to click save. This is how it looks. Now, if you ever need to go back and it's like, oh, I need a field, I need to modify a field here. So you click the gear and then you select choose fields, and you're back on this view where you can select which fields to show or hide. All right. Okay. Now, so as you can see, it needs an ID or a login. Now, before we're going to pass in the data from the event card, we can test this card and just check that it works. So all we need is the ID or the login. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the directory in people, and I'm going to get Aaron. And I'm going to copy Aaron's ID from the URL. You can also use their email. And I'm going to test this card. Now, to test the card, there's every card, or most cards, have this run option. And then I'm going to enter the ID and click run. And what it does is that it tests the card. And we can see that it works. This is the information that I get. If I would enter something incorrectly, I would get like an error message. Okay, so this works. Now, to get the ID, I'm going to scroll down the Okta user. I'm going to take this ID field, and I'm going to connect it like this. All right. So the event card, it will, the flow runs, and then I pass the information to the user card, and then I retrieve user information. Now, the next step is I need to compose a message. So for that, I'm going to use a function. Now, actions, these are actions for various applications or connectors. functions allow you to manipulate data. So there are different categories where you can create data, edit data, manipulate data, and so on. So the one I need is in text, and I'm going to use compose. And so I'm going to type a message, new Okta user. And so username, and this is going to be name, and this is title, and department. All right. Now, I need to set the values for each of these labels. So I'm going to take the username from the read user card and drag and drop it like this. For the name, I'm going to combine I'm going to use the first name and the last name, and I'm just going to put a space now here. For the title, oh, sometimes that happens. And so let's try this again. And department. All right, so this is how it looks. All right, now the next step is I want to send an email. And so because we're going to be using Gmail, right, that's an app, I'm going to use an app action, and I'm going to use Gmail and right here. Now, I promised I was going to show you also, let's pick a connector for which I don't have a connection yet. So maybe like, I don't know, Dropbox for Business, for example. And let's say I want to use this connector, and let's say I want to download a file. And I don't have a connection for it. So this is what you're going to see. It's going to prompt me to enter a connection, right? And again, every connector is a little bit different, but if I click, right, it's going to ask me to, this is the name, enter a description, and then it's going to ask me to create, it's going to ask me to log into my Google account and give access to workflows. Okay, some connectors might ask you for an API key or something similar, but that's just sort of how it works. But going back to Gmail, I already have a connection for Gmail. And now the action that I want to use is called send email. All right. So right here, I've got a connection. And also this card has some options. So it didn't prompt me right away, but if I can always go back and click options. For example, this one is telling me, do you want to send as HTML email? And I just say no. And now it's prompting me to enter the two. So I'm going to email it to myself. And then for the subject, I'm saying new Okta user. And then for the body, I'm going to take the message that I created previously like this. Now, there are some fields from CC and BCC that I don't actually use. So I'm going to click the gear and choose fields. And I'm actually going to uncheck. Right? So it just makes it a little bit more compact. Right? I'm going to click save. Also, another thing is that this is the output field for the compose card. Same way, like these are the output fields for the read user card, right? This is the input, this is the output. And you can rename this. So if you want to give it a little bit more context, otherwise you're going to have output for every compose card. You can click this little A, the type, and click customize. And let's say we're going to change it to message. Click save. And then it changes here and also changes here, right? All right. Okay, super quickly, we can also test this card, right? Click and say hi there. The email is set, and let's click run. Right, and then just returns the message ID. And let's see here. And so here I received the message, then this works. All right. Let's now add a Slack. That was the last part in this part of the demo. So because Slack is an application, it's app action, searching for Slack. And then scrolling down is send message to channel. And again, I already have a connection to Slack right here. I do need to set some options. First, I'm going to select the channel. I'm going to use new employees. I'm going to actually say yes as a bot. and everything's fine here. Click Save. And similar view, I don't need the timestamp, but I do want the emoji, and then click Save. So for the message, I'm going to use this message again. For the name, for the bot name, new employee, and for the emoji, we're going to use maybe a unicorn, right? Again, if I want to test this, and again, I encourage you to test cards before using them in the flow, itself. Run this card, say hi there, and click run. We'll get some timestamp, and if I go to Slack, we can see that the message arrived. Okay, now we're ready to test the flow. So the flow is on, we're saving data. Let's go to execution history. Again, we see the previous run. We can close this, and let's go to people, and let's import. So we're going to import Anna again. So this is Anna engineering, and upload and import. All right, done. If I'm going to my flow again, it just takes sometimes a few seconds for the execution to appear here. What I usually do also, you can just go to, oh, here it is, success. And now you can see, so we created the user, in turn, it triggered the flow. This is the first event card. Now we are reading the user information. We're retrieving that Anna and their, first name, last name, and title in department. We're composing a message. We're sending the email, and then we're sending a Slack message. Let's look at the Slack message. So we can see it's right here. As for the email, I go back. I just received this email. All right. Okay. I know there's some questions, but let me quickly finish the second part, and then I'll take all the questions. So the last part is that we also want to share a folder with them, just depending on which department they're in. Okay, so let's do that. Now, in the first part, I was adding cards at the end. So either action or a function. You don't have to add cards at the end. Actually, you can add cards in the middle. If you click the plus, and then this would be action, this would be a function. So let's add one here. And now I'm going to search and add a if-else logic. So this is if-else, and this shows you the category, so in branching. And now it says value. I want to compare a value, and so I'm going to take the department, and if the department is engineering, I'm going to share one folder. If the department is sales, I'm going to share a different folder. So I'm going to click save, and then it opens this. If it's true, then run. I can add cards here. If it falls, cards here. So I'm going to use the Google Drive connector, and I'm going to create a permission. And this is shared drive, no permission type, just user, and the permission role, just view is fine. I'm going to click save. And all these options are okay. I don't need to change anything. So the file ID, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Google Drive. I'm going to select engineering, and I'm going to copy the folder ID. Now for the email, I want to send the user the email that this folder was shared with you. And I look here, and there's no email on this card. Okay, so if that's the case, I can always go back to choosing to the gear, and I can scroll down and see, let's see here. I can now enable primary email and take the email. right? As for the message, I can, you could use a compose card to create a message, but I'm just going to type it here and say, you now have, let's say, view access to the engineering folder, right? So, and now for the else, what I can do is I can duplicate this card. So if I don't want to type or reuse some of the field already set, I can just duplicate a card. And I'm just gonna load here. Oh. Well, let me do this. Sometimes it happens. Let me try this again. Okay, so I'm gonna click save. And that what I do is I'm gonna take the card and I'm gonna actually move it. So you can drag and drop like this. Here we go. Okay. So we do need to change the ID because it's a different folder. So I'm gonna go back, sales, and right. As for the email, I'm going to take the primary email and connect it here. And lastly, I'm just going to change this to sales. All right, I'm going to save. All right, so now this is how it looks. All right, so let's run this and let's import Eric. So let's see, import. And so now we're going to do Eric from sales and upload. All right. So we see Eric and Anna here. If I go to the flow, if I go to execution history. Okay, so first I can go to Slack and I can actually see that the email was sent as before. If I go to email, I can check that now there is email to me, about Eric. And then here's the execution right here. So we can see, event and then reading information. And so it's not engineering. So this ran and then the email and the compose the email and the send message. All right. So yeah, that's what I wanted to show you. One quick thing I also want to show you is if you want to see a list of all the connectors or connections, you would go to connections and then you would see a list of all the connections. So you can see, for example, Slack. I have two different connections. So again, there is a connector, which is the Slack connector, and then you can have one or more connections to Slack, right? So this is yeah, you can see all the connections here. All right. Let me now see. Let me look at the questions. So I'm going to read it. I'm going to click here. Okay. So so the entire workflow can be automated then. Oh, yes. So you can automate the entire workflow again. Once a new user is created, it runs the automation and yeah, you don't have to really do anything else. Next question, is the API endpoint available for the entire workflow? So yes, let me actually show you. I can create a new flow here quickly. And just to show you, if you were to use an API endpoint, you would select the API endpoint. And there are different ways you can secure the API endpoint, but let's just use this one. And here I'm going to save. And then once you save, if you go back to the settings, you can see the invoke URL is right here. So now you can use this URL to invoke this flow from anywhere. Yeah, and it would just run, right? So you would, just run the entire flow, whatever you have in this flow, you would run it. So next question, can we get the session document? So you'll have the recording tomorrow, and I can also, if you want the flow, yeah, I can upload it, and I'll include the link in the message that goes tomorrow. So you can you'll have access. You can download this as download the flow and then, import it and then, yeah, run it if you would like. So yeah, I'll do that. Absolutely. All right. What is the difference between app action and function? So when you use an app action, this is when you're interacting with services or various apps, right? And then a function, this is where you create, manipulate, or edit data. So you work with numbers and strings and text. You can create if-else logic, objects, list, date and time, and so on. But again, on the other hand, app action is interacting with other services and apps, and behind the scenes, these are API calls. So again, let's say you want to do Marketo, and then you can see these are the various actions you can call. Now, if you don't see, if you don't see an action that you want to invoke, but it's available as an API endpoint on the service, then you can use the custom API action. So what it does is that it will allow you to reuse the connection, but then you specify the endpoint yourself. So again, if you don't see an action or API endpoint you would like to use, you can use a custom API action. You would need to add a little bit more configuration, but then you gain the flexibility of really calling any API endpoint on this service. And then lastly, another option, if there is an API that you want to use, but there is no connector for it, you can use an API connector card, which allows you to do a post, for example, or a get to really any API service, right? So you're not, if it's not in a list of connectors, but there is an API endpoint, you can still make a call to it from Workflows using the API connector card. So, let's see here. Is there a way to make the Slack or email text look nicer? So yes, so for email, it's just depending on the connector, but like with Gmail, I'm using text, but you can actually send an HTML email. And I think similar also for Office 365 email. As for Slack, so they have a whole framework for formatting messages. I think it's the Slack UI block framework. So you can, yes, you can set up or send a message or send a rich message to Slack as well using the Slack UI framework. It just takes a little bit more sort of, I guess, effort because you need to format the message in the JSON format. But yeah, you can definitely do it. And we have some videos that we did in the past that show how to do it. All right, let's see. How is Okta Workflows able to read data from the university directory on importing a user? Or how does it know that the user has been created in Okta Universal directory? So when you register, let me go back to the flow that I built. So when you create a flow like this with an event, so what happens is that the Okta core it creates a webhook, and so uh, then it says, well, when a user is created, call this. Behind the scenes, it's an API endpoint, uh, but that's just sort of how it calls this flow. When we do this, it creates a webhook inside Okta that then, the webhook event happens, it triggers the webhook and then calls this flow. As for, again, accessing data, everything is done through a connector and connections. So I have a connection to Okta. If I click new connection, so you can see what it requires, the client ID and the client secret. So you would go to your admin dashboard and find this information and then set up a connection. So that's how Workflows is able to connect to my Okta org and its data. And it's similar with any other service, right? So if you use Gmail, right, I gave Okta Workflows permission to access my Gmail. And it's similar with any service, right? You first create a connection, and that's how you can, read and create data. All right. Let's see here. Next one. Is it possible to have a custom API connector, and which language does it support? Is there a session already posted on YouTube about it? So if you are, let me close out of this. So let me save. So if you're referring to this custom right here, then it's similar. You will use a card. So let me do a get, for example, just to show how it looks. So you don't really use a language. You just provide a URL here and set up the query and the headers. And then you can call any API. Now, there is another option. Let me save and just exit. Is that there's the connector builder, which allows you to create a connector to a service, right? So what I mean by that, for example, I have a weather connector. So what I did is I built the connector to call the weather API. And if I go back to my kick me out. Let's go here. Let's go here. What I'm going to show you is that you can build a connector for an API. So for example, weather or weather here, that looks like this, right? So you can build the connector for your custom API and then expose it sort of as a connector in workflow. So it looks like any other connector, but it's for your custom one. Now, how you build the connector is you still use workflows to build the connector. And I'm going to show you one more time. Sorry, I know I'm switching between different views here, but looking at the weather one. So to build, it has several flows, but this is how it looks. So you still use workflows, various, different cards sometimes to build a connector, right? And then you can make it available in workflows. Hopefully that answers your question. And we do have several sessions about it. All right. Let's see. Can you customize the subject line to send email function? So yes, you could definitely customize the subject line. So let me just quickly show you. So yes, so you would, for example, add another compose card here. And so you would say new Okta user, or you can create it using data from previous cards, and then maybe change this to subject. Click save, and then just go like this. So that's how you would customize the subject. Question, where can I watch past videos? I am going to, it's on YouTube, on Okta YouTube, there's a playlist. What I'm going to do is I'm going to include a link. So when I send a message tomorrow with the recording to this event, I'm going to include a link to the playlist. But if you go to YouTube and search for Okta, you'll see Okta Workflows playlist. And then it has all the videos that we recorded in the past. So let's see. Is there a limit on number of cards that can be used in a single workflow? I am not aware of a limit. There might be a limit, but it's a really, really large limit. I mean, you probably don't want to build a flow with that many cards. You can divide, you can sort of have subflows using a helper flow. But yeah, you probably don't want to reach the limit. It's just going to be too big and too complicated to debug and test. Let's see. If I have 10 workflows, is there a sequence in which they are executed any priority? So it depends. I mean, if they're somehow calling each other, they're going to be executed in a sequence. But you can have flows using different events that trigger on different events, and then they'll be executed when that event happens in Okta. So, or we can have some workflows that run on schedule, and then they'll run every day or every week, or every month even. It just really depends how you trigger a flow. All right, I think we have one more. So use case, we have one ABC application Okta and ABC group assigned to that application. Also, we have one temp ABC group created in Okta, and the user who is part of the ABC group is trying to access the ABC application should add it to the. Okay. So I just don't see a question. If you want to maybe type in a question, I can try and answer it. But also what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put my email in chat. Oh, I see there's more question in chat. Can we get the session document? So, I saw the same question in the chat in the Q&A. So yes, you'll get a recording, and then I'll also make the demo, the flow also available as well. But if I didn't answer your question, or maybe the answer wasn't clear enough, yeah, feel free to email me. I put my email in the chat, so you can yeah, feel free to send me any questions. Again, I always respond. So all right, I see one more. What are the best use cases where workflows can be used? So, oh, sorry, I clicked on, but I didn't answer it, but it's okay. Let me try if I can see if I can reopen it. No, I can't reopen it. Well, it's fine. So I would say the best case, so just at a high level, workflows is a way to customize and automate Okta. So that's kind of high level. But what I would suggest is to save changes. You can go to the templates and just kind of see what use cases we cover in templates. So that's a really, really great way to see what's possible. But as I said, it's a way to customize Okta if you need to do something that the core Okta maybe doesn't make it straightforward, or maybe you don't want to write code, then you can use workflows. So again, so customize and also automate. If there is something Okta does, but maybe you want to automate it, so you don't have to actually go and click on on users and so on. So hopefully that answers that question. Let's see, there's one more. Would using workflows for adding users to a group be better than using group rule? I don't think there's one better on the other. I think using a group rule is a perfectly fine solution. I think it's just going to depend on the case. I know we see a similar question in office hours a lot, and we often recommend using group rules. So I think it's using group rules is fast, and so yeah, really depends on the case, but um, I think either approach is good, just depending on what you're trying to achieve. So, oh, actually, I said for the videos, you can actually find the videos. There was a question about videos, but I sort of forgot. But that there's a video to the link from here. It's the first link. So how to videos. If you open it, it's right there, and I can share the playlist. Let me see where you find chat. So here's the playlist of the YouTube. But as I said, it's it's the first link under resources. Cool. Well, thank you so much for attending. This was glad, but I'm glad that I was able to answer questions. And let's see, there's one. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad this was helpful. Uh, as I mentioned, you'll get a message with a link to the recording, but check out our YouTube playlist with, for similar sessions we did in the past. And then my email is in the chat, so feel free to email me questions. And then office hours also, there is a link right here. So you can sign up for office hours and ask questions. And then we run these sessions once a month on different topics. So yeah, we'll hope to see you at a future session. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.